this conversation we've been having, I think I'm already getting into it, has been about self-awareness, and how it affects flourishing relationships, and I try to establish that self-awareness is the foundation of a lasting and a true and happy relationship. It's the foundation of it. It's the foundation of it. That is where you start from. If you don't have proper self-awareness, you are living a lie. Like you don't even know what you're doing. And that is why many things get to you. There are things that should typically not get to you. There are things you should not be overcome by, but they overcome you. It's because you still haven't found yourself. So many times, people are living for the applause of the world. They want to be accepted by every other person. They just want that endorsement, and it's not your fault. I'm coming there. If you had followed what we shared, the things we shared last week, and by the way, if you missed the conversations of the past 2 weeks, I will encourage that you try to watch them, because they've been very instructive. We practically opened up some of the areas that people don't know are affecting them. We actually opened up some of those places, and that alone was therapeutic for a lot of persons on the call. So I was saying that, some of those things that happened were not your making. You found yourself in those circumstances. You didn't ask your parents to give birth to you. When they did, there are some people in some climes that go ahead to sue their parents to say, hey, you know what? You brought me into this world without my consent. Well, I don't know. I don't know how those things happen, but it's the truth. They brought you in without your consent. Yeah. So, you didn't choose where you were going to be born. There are people who are adults who till date are regretting that they were born into the parents they were born into. Some people, the only big regret in their life now is that they were born in Nigeria, and that's because of the kind of, situation that Nigeria is going through right now, economically, politically, and, every other area. But guess what? When Nigeria becomes that great and blessed nation, they will now be saying, hey, Nigeria to the world, proud to be Nigerian, those kind of things, but the point is, you did not choose where you were born into. You did not choose the family. You did not choose the activities of that family. You could not influence your parents' behavior. You were too small to even, you didn't know anything. Do you understand? You could not influence the peace in the home. You couldn't stop some of those quarreling, between your parents. You didn't determine the secondary or primary school they were going to take you to. That place you went to where you were so messed up and you met bad friends and they took your life, you didn't influence all of that. Do you understand? You were helpless about it. It's in this day and age that we're teaching parents, how at certain stages of the child's development, you involve them in certain decision making about their lives. All right. But those days, who are you? What do you know? They tell you what to do. We impose our lives on our children. There are people who wanted to be doctors and could not make it successfully to medical school, and they gave birth to a child. They said, this child, you must carry on my dream that you could not achieve. You want to now force it on this person that maybe God has wired in a way that they will do better in the arts or perhaps in the football field. All right. But then you force down what you want on children, and it starts affecting the trajectory of their lives entirely. All right. So we took a look at all of that. I'm trying not to really get into all of those talk, but what I'm just trying to say is that you need to understand that all of those things did not happen with your consent. It was not your making. All right. So you don't have to live in the present, or rather, you don't need to allow the issues of the past to control your life in the present and to determine what the future of your life will be. Let me say it again. You don't have to allow the issues of the past that were not within your control to control your present and to determine your future. You should not do that. And in the course of the conversations today, I hope to share some more light on how you can be intentional, about creating the life you desire for yourself. Marie, it's good to see you. Thank you for showing up. So I was just explaining how that many people who have thought that this is who I am, this is how I am, with respect to strengths and weaknesses, especially in the weaknesses this time. You say, oh, I'm just this hot-tempered person. I'm just like that. I'm a fighter. I'm just like that. I like to be at the back. I don't like to have friends. I don't want anybody around me. That's just me. We established that many times all of those things you thought were just you were not really you, but rather they were the impact of the upbringing, the environment, and the significant experiences of your life right from birth. Are you getting it now? There are certain things that are very fundamental for the wholesome development of a child from infancy. All right. One of them is affection. Another is attention. I'm going to share on some of these things more elaborately some other time. All right. I said affection, attention, expression. All right. If I remember the others, I'll bring them on. Now, these things, physical touch. All right. Appreciation. You see, now all of these things are very instructive for the well-being, for the wholesome emotional well-being of a child. And if the child is denied any of these, it begins to impact on their worldview. It begins to impact on their behavior. All right. It begins to impact on what kind of persons they grow up to be. And many people don't know this. You just found yourself at age 21 behaving in a kind of way and you say, this is me. That is not you. That version has been influenced by so many things. I think I've said this enough. Let me leave it and move on to other things. But I just want you guys to understand that a lot of those things that you have thought were you, were the effect of the programming, the subconscious programming of your environment, of your upbringing, and of the experiences of your life. So the big question may be, how do we take it forward from here? All right, which is what I'm going to be answering in the course of this conversation. But let me just read out some statistics I stumbled upon. The first one says that a child raised by emotionally stable and available parents has a higher emotional intelligence and a higher chance at excelling in their personal, relational, and professional lives. All right. These are some stats that based on research that psychologists, have carried out over the years. All right. A child raised by emotionally stable and available parents has a higher emotional intelligence and a higher chance of succeeding in their personal, relational, and professional life. All right. Your upbringing, that foundation of your self-awareness affects everything. All right. Another one says that men who find it difficult at some point in their lives to leave their parents and cleave to their partners, many times there's a very strong likelihood that they were raised in a controlling environment. So even though they are married now, even though they are of age, to start their own families and run their lives, you discover that before they take any step, they have to go and get endorsement from parents, from mother, from that controlling father. What did he say? Oh, he has to, and you have no idea how this makes your girl or your wife feel, where she expects you to take the leadership and take certain decisions, and you always have to revert to what daddy or mommy say, and sometimes you guys have planned out the whole course of life, only for you to change it suddenly because mommy said something. You see, and I tell people that such a person, such a guy, he's not yet emotionally ready for marriage. He might be a big man physically with build, with macho, but emotionally such a person isn't ready for the commitment and the leadership of marriage, of being a husband. You see, why? Because they have not been able to deal with that foundational issue of the validation that they sought from their parents. There are many people who are living their lives today just to please a particular person. Maybe it's the father figure in their lives. Maybe it's their mom. There are instances where maybe the dad was not there from childhood, and then the mother did everything she could do to make them who they are today. And they just feel like, I owe my life to my mother, and while that is a good thing to appreciate her for all that she did for you and for your siblings, But many times they don't know when it becomes a subtle, abusive kind of relationship, because now your mother runs your life. Because before you would do anything, she would change it for you and use emotional blackmail sometimes to tell you, oh, after all I've done for you, you say, oh, sorry, mommy. Oh, yeah, your wish is my command. But at some point, it is required that a person, is supposed to be able to detach from all that level of emotional entanglement, to be able to forge ahead with the leadership of their lives and their families. All right, let me just move on with some of that. And I'm just reading some of these things because these are things that affect people in marriage, and many times they don't even know where the origin was from. All right, in-laws who infringe into marriage always do so to the degree of the latitude that partners indulge them. I'm sure you can relate with that. Someone who, just so like the example I was giving, a person who had not learned to sever that cord with his mother or with her mother or with her father, now gets married to someone else, and then the parents start trying to take decisions, in their marital home, in their child's marital home. And the reason that happens is because that child themselves were not able to sever, as it were, to draw the boundary lines to say, okay, you know what, daddy and mommy, you're good, I love you guys, but anything you're saying to me right now has to be a suggestion. All right, I have to consider it with my husband, I have to consider it with my wife, and then we decide if it works for us, for the cause of our family vision and the things we have set together to achieve. All right, if it works for us, we'll go ahead and take it. But if it doesn't, I'm sorry, we appreciate the suggestion, but we have other plans. You see, you should be able to talk like that. You should be able to do that. But many times when there's all those crossing of boundaries and all those infringements into the home, it's because one partner, who was supposed to have at some point, drawn the boundary lines and everyone knew when not to cross, did not do that or cannot do that, does not have the heart, does not have the liver to do that. And then you see all this kind of encroachment, and before you know it begins to affect the couple themselves, who are supposed to be enjoying their love life. And and do you know that there are many times, I have seen this time and time again, there are many times where a home is destroyed because of the influence of a third party, an in-law, an uncle, a sibling, a brother, a sister. These two people on their own were ready to make it work. But when the influence of that family member came that they were not able to dissociate from, they began to join forces with that family member in the name that blood is thicker than water. They don't know that in the real sense of it, the real blood now is the one between you and your spouse. All right, which should be thicker than any other thing elsewhere. Do you get it now? So all those kind of unnecessary influence begin to come in. I'm showing you how those foundations, just some examples of those foundations that were not taken care of can start playing out later in people's relationships. All right. So let me just move on. There are a lot of them, but I think I should. Okay, now let me give these two examples or three of them, and then I'll move on. Okay, this one says women raised in environments where they saw their father bully their mother and physically or verbally abuse her. They have higher tendencies to become aggressive in marriage, and sometimes with fatal consequences, and sometimes even walk out of marriage at the slightest provocation. All right, I'm sure there's that's not rocket science. If they've been raised in environments where they saw their mother bullied by her husband, all right, it does something to them. It makes them usually more aggressive because they see every male figure as their father. Especially when you now try and start behaving like that's their father. And that is why sometimes, and you see, this is the thing about the mind and the way the mental and subconscious space works. Many times those kind of ladies end up attracting men who would look like their father, who will talk like their father, who will behave like their father. That same man that they say they hate with all their heart, sometimes they start attracting men who behave like that, because what they don't know is that, there's a force field in the mind, and what you constantly are exposed to, begins to form in you. Your brain begins to register that as it's normal, and the truth is your brain is designed in a way that it's supposed to protect you. All right. So it begins to draw you close to what is familiar. That is why you discover that, sometimes you see people who have been in hurtful relationship leave that one and move to another one that is equally hurtful. They leave that one and move to another one. What is happening? There is an energy, the magnetic energy around them, the force field around them is that of that dysfunction, and it only knows fellow dysfunction. So it's always drawn to dysfunction. All right. But those things can be broken, and I hope to get to that point very quickly. All right. Let me see. Oh, on the other hand, okay, of course, let me say this one. Girls who were abused when they were growing up are more likely to be sexually vulnerable, even in adulthood. All right. That also is very clear. All right. It's just like what I was just explaining. There's already that force field, and many times these things, when people are abused, it affects them in so many ways. One of which is that they feel like they're worthless. They feel like, why did it have to happen to me? I'm just useless. There's no good in me. They begin to look down on themselves. It depletes their self-worth. They grow up struggling to accept themselves. There's some who don't even really get to accept. They just wish they were someone else. They just wish they were living another life. These people grow up into adulthood. And in the natural course of life, at some point, your body will start wanting a partner. You see, and because these things are not dealt with, in every partner that comes, they are seeing the people who did that hurt to them, and they are not able to differentiate, that no, that particular event happened at a time in my life. It is not this person. This person was not responsible. But again, like I told you, because the brain is trying to protect you, you see, all of those aggressiveness, all of those, in some cases, withdrawal, all of those shame and that guilt and that validation needing and that attention seeking. See, all of that thing just makes them feel like that is how they can feel that void, and unfortunately, it doesn't do the job. All right. Now, where I'm going to with all of this is to say and to establish that no matter what the negative issues have been around your upbringing, around the environment you grew up in, and the experiences of your life, no matter, irrespective of how terrible and sad those stories are, listen to me, the fact that you're still around here and now shows that there is hope for you. It shows that it can get better, because as a matter of fact, what happens is that with knowledge comes insight, comes illumination. All right. And the fact that you're listening to this kind of conversation right now tells you that something is beginning to happen in your mind. You're suddenly beginning to discover that perhaps there is hope. Perhaps I am better than this. And that's why in my nuggets, I always tell people, that irrespective of the pictures of failed marriages and terrible experiences you've had in your life, irrespective of all that, you can get it right. You definitely can. There are many people who have given up hope. All right. But I want you to know that you can get it right. Things can work out for you. That's why we're doing what we're doing. All right. As a matter of fact, what we're doing is supposed to supply you that strength to pick yourself up from where you left yourself. There are people actually who are getting old every day, but have abandoned themselves to the events of life. They have abandoned themselves to fate, as it were. If any good thing happens to them, good to them. If any terrible thing happens, such is life, they just abandon themselves they wake up every day with no dream, with no passion, with no vision, with nothing to live life for, just wondering what the day brings. Why? Because many times they have been defeated in the core of themselves. All right. And that's one thing that the devil tries to do to people. He does it in very subtle ways, through those experiences, through all of those things, to begin to give you ideas and other thoughts, that you cannot make it. You're not that valuable. You're not, people don't love you. You're not even lovable. Look at yourself. You even love yourself, and at those times, what happens is all the weaknesses of your life begins to stare you at the face, and you're feeling like, man, I'm just a hopeless and useless fellow, and then you begin to compare yourself with other people who you think are better than you. What you don't even know is that in some of the conditions of your life, you are even better than those people. Because sometimes when you hear what other people are going through, you even know that my own is not that serious. And of course, I see this in counseling. Some people come and talk to you as though, it's their lives, are the worst there is. And sometimes you just try to share with them a little idea of what is going on here, what's going on there. And they're like, what? Really? And you're like, exactly. All right. It's not that bad. Yes, it's bad in itself, but come on, you have something to be grateful for. That's just what I'm saying. All right. So, so I said something earlier. I said you should not allow the events of your past to control your present. Okay. And to determine your future. Because what happens is this. There are many people who are in the present, but they are not living in the present. They are actually still living in the past. And I'll give you some examples. You are in the present, but your reactions to everything that happens to you in life are still powered by those unpleasant events in your past. What's happening is that past is what's controlling your present. Do you understand? Some of those things are dead and gone and buried, but the effect still lives on in your mind. And that's the way the human being is designed. Okay, this is where intentionality comes in, because at some point you're going to realize, you're going to wake up to the point that you are the captain of your life. This ship of your life, God placed you as the captain to steer that ship. It is the day you wake up. It is the day you say an end to all of this rubbish. It is the day you decide that I'm taking my life in my hands and I believe that I can create something out of this life God has given me. It is the day you wake up to that realization that you will begin to see things happen, differently in your life. Dr. Mike Murdoch says something that when the heart decides a destination, the mind will work out the map to get there. Sometimes all you need to do is just wake up to that decision. All right. I hope somebody gets it. There was something I was going to say, but in the flow, I jumped it. Let me see if I can find that back. Okay. Let me trust the flow. Do you understand? Yeah, because I see many people being controlled by their past. Perhaps it was the loss of a loved one, and you have not been able to move on since then. You've not been able to move on. I'm not saying you should love them any less, but what I'm saying is by the time those events are beginning to have a grip on your current life, to the extent that you cannot make any advancement, you cannot make any progress towards the direction of your dream and fulfillment just because of that issue in the past, then I'm telling you that event is controlling your present. And it's about time you let it go. It's about time. Oh, yes. It's about time you let it go. You say, oh, he was the first boyfriend I ever had. He pretended to be everything good. Oh, I gave him my all. My parents accepted him. My friends accepted him. Oh, and then he left me for my friend. And you say, I can never trust any man. Why are you doing that to yourself? This is just one lousy fellow out of the billions of men in the world. You see, you are allowing your past to be controlling your present. And because of that, you have formed this unhealthy belief about men. So even when the genuine ones are coming around you, you don't believe them. You don't open up your heart to them. You don't believe anything called man. Even the pastor of your church, you just say all of them are in the same WhatsApp group. Is it not men? Why are you doing this to yourself? And when you check deeply, the reason for this position of yours is strictly that event by that one person. And then unfortunately, the way life is, life begins to suggest other similar stories to you, and you just go ahead and fill your head with a lot of woes. And you say, oh no, this thing called love is just a mess. Oh, men are useless people. Men are scum. Oh, men, we say, oh, women are liars. They'll say, oh, after God, fear woman. You see, you begin to come up with all of those concepts. I'm not saying terrible things don't happen, but listen to me. I'm saying that if there is any of those terrible events that happened and it's in your past already, it's about time you left it right there so that you can gain control over this ship of your life and move it to where you need to be going to. There's a story I tell sometimes of a man who went to meet a fortune teller and said, I want you to tell me what the outcome of my life will be. Will I be rich? Will I be poor? Will I be great or not? And the fortune teller brought out a caterpillar, and then to the left-hand side, he put a black, let's say a black cloth, and to the right-hand side, he put a white cloth, and he put the caterpillar in the middle. And he told the man that in the direction that this caterpillar goes determines what the outcome of your life will be. Where the black cloth shows poverty and wretchedness, and the white cloth shows peace and prosperity. Okay, and he dropped the caterpillar there, did his incantations and all of that. And at some point, the caterpillar just started moving in any direction it wanted, but it started going towards the direction of the black cloth, which is where it's supposed to show that this person's life is going to be full of problem, right? And poverty. And this man was watching. The caterpillar was going towards the left. It was going, and the guy was just watching. And I was looking at the soothsayer. Won't you do something about it? The guy was looking. He was quiet. As the thing was going towards the black, the man said, no. He couldn't hold it anymore. And he picked the white cloth and the black cloth, and he swapped the positions. He put the white where the black was and put the black where the white was. And the native doctor asked him, why did you do that? He said, no, it's not my future that we're talking about here. I cannot sit down here and allow one silly caterpillar to be determining my future. And then the man told him, yes, you have gotten the message. It is absolutely and entirely up to you to determine what the direction of your life is going to look like. It's entirely up to you. You see, so what's happening when you are staying in the hurts of past relationship, in the hurts of dysfunctional upbringing, in the hurts of the people who jilted you, in the hurts of all the things that did not work out for you? What you are doing is that you have carried your life and handed it over to all of those events to say, you know what, I dedicate my life to you, run it, have it, treat it as you will. All right. And then if you do that, you will just discover that you have disempowered yourself from the control of this life, of this ship that God committed to you. So you see, your life is a gift. All right. And what you do with it becomes your gift back to God. Let me say it again. Your life is a gift to you by the Creator, by the Almighty God. He gifted you with this life and said, you know what? Take charge of this. With it, go and dominate. With it, go and take charge. With it, go and affect your world. With it, go and make the world a better place because of you. All right. Now, that is His gift to you. What you choose to do with this life, all right, becomes your gift back to Him. Because we understand that there is a time when we're all going to give account. Do you get it now? All right. So when you choose to stay in the past, you say, oh, it was my parents. Oh, they were very wicked. Oh, my parents destroyed my life. They have done their bit and they have gone. Perhaps they're still around, or you have left their house. That's what I'm saying. Maybe they have not gone, but you have left their house. You're now an adult. All right. You cannot be here and still be lamenting or complaining or blaming the things your parents did. And the truth is, someone was so bitter about what was happening in his home and with his parents. And I told him, I said, hey, trust me, these guys are doing what they know to be best at the time. If they knew better, perhaps they would do better. All right. So you have to be the one to now demonstrate the maturity and the maturity and the grace towards them, because now you are knowing better. So don't take it out on them. If not, you'll be making the same mistakes that you are accusing them of making. You see, it was because of the way they raised us up. There was no love in the home. My dad was this, my mom was that. It's because of them now. See, we don't know how to love. Enough of that. All right. Now you have to take responsibility for yourself. You're here. You're an adult. You're listening to me. What I'm saying to you is that you are entirely responsible for what the next phase and the next, outcomes of your life is going to be. So don't sit back there wallowing in those events that were not within your control. That's just what I'm saying. All right. So let me move on a little bit. I saw Reverend Chima a while ago in the house. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Thank you so much. All right. So let me move on. So what do you do next? All right. Now that, in the past 2 weeks, because we really went through all of those, dysfunctions and trauma, so what do you do next? Now we're done with all of that. You need to learn to accept yourself. Accept yourself. This is you. Like I said, you see all of those things that happened, many of them were not directly within your control. You were put in a school where you met bad friends and they lured you into bad behavior, and then it affected your life in some kind of way. You didn't choose to go to that school. Perhaps you didn't even know better at the time. Speaking about school now, I'm just remembering the issue that have trended in the past few days about bullying and all. If I have some time, I'll say something about that. Or should I just touch it now and then come back to what I'm saying? Okay, let me touch it because, bullying is something that actually is part of those significant emotional experiences in people's lives. It's actually a traumatic experience in people's lives. There are people who till today still have the scars from what bullies did to them way back in school. So let me just touch it very quickly. I think it's relevant to our conversation. Now, when we talk about bullying, everybody is quick to point accusing fingers, no, not accusing fingers, condemnation fingers or condemning fingers on that person, the bully. All right. But, for some of us who are in the business of human lives, all right, what I mean is in the business of, no, not business, that's not the word. In the, somebody should help me with the word, right? Who's a life coach? Let me put it like that. In the business of helping people's lives get better, and let me put it like that. All right. There's always a different approach. There's always a different lens with which we look at these things. When you see that person behaving that way, many times you're not seeing what they're doing, because that thing that you're seeing out there is just a mask. There's a lot more that is going on inside. Hey, ministry. Thank you, my brother. We're in the ministry of helping lives get better. Okay. So we see beyond the external, right? There is always something more. There's always something, there's always a root to that fruit. Let me put it like that. So when you're condemning that behavior, which of course is condemnable, my point is that how did that child become like that? How did that person become like that? I took time to just read up a few things, and I saw some interesting research. Let me just read out one or two things. It says exposure to aggression and conflict in the home consistently relates to aggressive behavior. Parents who are aggressive or neglectful or use corporal punishment, all this harsh flogging and wicked beating, parents who do that or engage in serious conflicts with each other are more prone to have children who are bullies. So you see that behavior many times is coming from a background. Sometimes there's abandonment there. And then this person have learned to grow up by themselves. They don't know what empathy is. They look for every opportunity to prove to themselves or to the people around them that they are stronger, that they are better, that they are more powerful, that they have things working for them. There's a dysfunction somewhere. You see, there's a core dysfunction somewhere. There's in basic African partners, there's a lack of proper home training somewhere, because no emotionally healthy child, let me say this categorically, no emotionally healthy child will go bullying another person. No one will do that. No emotionally healthy child will do that, because they understand what empathy is. They understand what love is. They understand that, that they should not be inflicting pain on someone else for pleasure. Do you understand? That's what bullies do. They enjoy inflicting pain on other people. They enjoy suppressing other people. It makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel like they're in charge, like they're in control. You see, and there are people who have gone through this phase, either as the bullies themselves or as the victims. All right. Whichever way, these things have, ways of damaging your self-concept or making you have an unhealthy sense of self that goes eventually to affect your relationship and your marriage. All right. Now, there's also the peer pressure factor there. All right. Because people who stay around these environments, maybe the person came in there, but of course, again, without a solid foundation from the parents, right? They get in there and they are easily dissuaded. You see, children who grow up well, it's not very easy for them to be wayward. It's not very easy. Yes, there's that part of excitement and teenage exuberance where they just want to try out everything, see everything. Deep down, the foundation is still there. Before long, those people will come back. After all the rascality, they will come back. Before long, you find out that these people who, in the prime of their teenage, all over the place, stealing here, fighting here, just living life anyhow. Sometimes, just a few years later, you see that these guys are fully transformed and they are back to the foundations that have been laid. And that's why scripture rightly said in Proverbs 22 verse 6, that there is a way to train up a child. Train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they are old, they would not depart from it. And I shared with you last week or so that scientifically, from the age of 6, a child has already, to a very large extent, formed their cardinal worldviews at age 6 or 7. So every other thing you're seeing play out in that child's life as a teenager, it was decided since between 1 and 6. Why? Because at that first stage, when the child comes into the world, they are like a plain canvas. There's nothing there. They're just blank, right? Except the very basic instincts they have for survival, but every other thing is what the world begins to throw at them. The world, parents come, paint here, environment comes, paints there, it's just a plain canvas. So between that age and age 6, you see, the child is observing how he's trying to get used to this life. It's his first time here. He's not familiar with stuff around here. Okay, so everything that they see based on the way they interact with their world, they begin to take it in, and it forms in them a worldview from childhood. And this is why there are many people who have grown to age 40, but what is doing them? Sometimes you have to go back to age 4 or 5 or 6 to treat it. All right. Many times the emotional and psychological development of that person, many of them stopped at the worldview that had been formed at age 6 or 7. So why am I saying all of that? So imagine that those children were exposed to all of those things, all those aggression at home, no love, no peace, no appreciation, no affection, those 5 things I shared, that are very key. I talked about attention, appreciation, expression, what were the other ones? There were 2 other things I mentioned. You see, so when a child is deprived of any of these very fundamental things that make for emotional wholeness, it shows as a dysfunction in their relationship with other people, in their worldview of life. It shows, it plays out later. You see, children who were deprived of expressing themselves, for example, are the ones who now become really withdrawn, timid, low self-esteem. They may know what is right, but they don't have the confidence to say it or to do it. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be prominent. They don't want to be out there because of what's going on in their head, what people will say about them, the comments people have made about them, that thing that's always telling them you're a failure, you cannot make it, you're not good enough, all of those things eventually affect the outcomes of the person's life. So I was just talking about the events that trended about the bullying and all. So what I was saying basically is, don't pay attention to just the act. You should have more empathy or compassion for that child and hope that that person will get help. All right. But more importantly, you cannot do anything about that. What you can do something about is yourself, right? What kind of children are you going to raise? If you're not married here, you need to make a commitment to yourself and to your future spouse that your home will radiate love, friendship, acceptance, expression, appreciation, all right, for these children. You need to make that commitment to yourself. You need to make a commitment to raise a healthy child emotionally, a child with secure attachment, a child with confidence, with love, with empathy. You have to make that commitment to yourself. If not, you'll be contributing to some of the menace and nuisance out there in society. Okay, and I'm not saying that to put anybody down. I'm saying that by virtue of what their actions constitute because of the neglect they suffered in proper upbringing. All right, so this thing is very critical. Let me move on to where I was before. I just thought to mention that thing about the bullying. So beyond the act, pay more attention to the roots. That's just what I'm saying. All right, pay more attention to the roots. And if you notice a child who is fond of being quick to aggression, who is always trying to prove to others that they're better than them, who would see a smaller person and they just want to make those smaller people know that they're bigger than them. Maybe they kick them or they hit them on the head, or they know that that person is tending towards bullish behaviors. And many times it's because the emotional foundation was not properly laid. And then many times that kind of behavior is also being modeled by their father or by their mother. Do you understand? So when you see people like that, you want to pay attention to them and as much as possible, try to guide them in the right way. All right. So let me move on to what I was saying. So everything, let me just, everything that I had established about your upbringing, if you remember in the first session, 2 weeks ago, I said that there are 2 aspects to you. All right. There's your physical ancestry and there's your spiritual ancestry. All right. Everything in this world, everything in this world, everything that is, was first spiritual. Do you understand? There's two dimensions in the world. There's the spiritual and the physical. All right. So anything that you see physically, you should understand that first existed in the spiritual. All right. The Bible says that the world and all that there is in it, okay, were made out of that which was not seen. For by faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things that are were made out of the things that were not. So what I'm saying to you is that you are not just this outward you that you're dealing with here. All right. There's also more to you, especially if at some point in your life you have accepted the love of God and you're in relationship with God, your Father. Okay. Why am I saying this? Because the same way you were born from your earthly parentage, right? In the same way, the real you, which is not this body, which is the spirit in you, has its source. And the source of that real you is the very essence of God himself. How do I know that? Way back in creation, before, in fact, the concept note that from which we came out, right? The concept note said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. So that means that no matter how battered you have been by life, no matter the experiences that you have gone through, all right? So long as you are human, you have in you the very essence of God. You may not have known it yet. You may not have found out yet. You may not have made peace with your Creator yet, all right? But you have it in you. Because he said, let us make man in our image and likeness. Every human. And that is why invention is not exclusive to believers. That is why creativity is not exclusive to believers. That is why success and greatness and all of these things are not exclusive to believers. Why? Because the human has that essence in him. And you need to pay attention to this very seriously. That you is whole. That you is unblemished. That you is not the one that was tortured or that was bullied or that has slept with all those men. No. That you still has that essence. What happens is that all of these other activities of life has suppressed your spirituality to the point that you now think that this is who you really are. And that is why we are quick to tell people that you are not your shortcomings. So you are not your failures. You are not your challenges. There is a you, all right, that is greater than all of these things you are going through. In self-awareness, part of the things I want to help you do is to understand that your spirit is whole. If you're physically challenged, your spirit is not physically challenged. You are whole. It is this revelation, this consciousness that has helped the likes of Stevie Wonders or our own Cobhams to be able to excel at a craft as music, as an art and craft as music, even with physical sight impairment. Why? Because deep down in their spirit, they are whole. You see, what your eyes are seeing physically, the keyboard, you go there, you cannot play it. Somebody has not seen it physically before, but is able to relate with it, change functions, select keys, and do all of those things. Why? Because there's a wholeness on the inside. Why am I saying all of this? Because the more you reduce yourself to your experiences, the more you shortchange yourself from the greatness that God has placed on your inside. Let me say it again. If you keep reducing yourself to your experiences, then you are shortchanging yourself from the great life that God has in store for you. All right? And this is very important because you need to get it first as you, before you're talking about falling in love. I'm always emphasizing this thing. You have to get it first. You have to be whole in yourself. It's not your partner that is going to make you whole. It's not your partner that is going to supply what is missing in your life. No. If you're still trying to get into a relationship for that person to supply what is missing in your life, no, that person too, something is missing there, especially if they are not whole yet. Do you understand? So both of you are helpless. You can't help yourselves. All right? You need to find this first. And part of the ways you know you have found it is that you are not looking for anybody to give you validation first before you know you're important. You're not feeling good because people told you you look good, and then you're happy, and then somebody says, oh, there's a stain on the back of your shirt, and then you say, oh, so you're happy when people tell you that things are fine with you, and then you're sad when the review is negative. No, if you're still like that, then you've not gotten to that wholeness we're talking about. Because if you have gotten there, listen to me, with or without any stain in your body, in your life, in your outlook, you will know that you are greater than that limitation. Let me tell you something. You see all of those negative things in your past, all of those experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, make up the authentic you. If you understand where I'm going with this, you will know that you have never been disadvantaged in your life. Everything that has happened to get you to this point, where from where you are, you'll be able to, in retrospect, see how all of those things have added up to contributing to this very product. And then from here, with this strength, you can now move on and create your world. Let me use illustrations that you should relate with. When you see the cake or the lovely jollof rice that you love, the party jollof, beautiful to the sight, irresistible, lovely, yummy, for that thing to become what it was, it went through a lot of painful process, like being cooked in fire. Oh yes. And then all of those, everything that was involved in the process, at some point, ingredients are added. This is added. That is added. Water is added. There is onions. There's spices. There's this. All of those things have to be mixed well, cooked by that fire. Listen, those experiences that you have been trying to run away from, perhaps have been the fire that is mixing all of those ingredients together so that you will taste beautifully at the end. That is what I'm saying. So don't discount all of those things. Don't try to remove it from your life. No. You have to make peace with that. You have to accept it. That's the point I was saying, self-acceptance. You have to accept it. Yes, all of these things have happened. I can't change them. But what has it made me into? What has it taught me? What has it formed in me? Oh, there is pepper. Thank you, Reverend Chima. Thank you. There is pepper in the ingredients. You see? But you have to add all of them and stir them properly over time in that fire. It's about time you saw yourself the way God saw you. God sees you. It's about time. You need to stop looking at yourself from the lenses of all of those betrayal, from all of those struggles, to discovering that I am better than this, actually. And guess what? From the moment you tell yourself this, that I am better than this, that can be the beginning of a new you. Because what that will do to you is that it will begin to push you towards what to do to really take you to where you desire to be. It will begin to push you there by itself. You see, one day you will just stumble on one information, you will read it and you'll find something that will excite your spirit, So let me give you an example. There was a time I started getting interested in financial literacy. I just wanted to know more. I just wanted to, I just wanted to know more about money and how stuff works. And then I stumbled on one magazine way back then. It was Financial Times. I think I was in secondary school. The Financial Standards. I'm just flipping through the pages and then I stumbled on a column. And the things I read there from then till date, it took my financial consciousness to a completely different realm. Where did this start from? Just the desire to want to find something, to know more. You see, so I'm telling you that from the moment you start telling yourself, I can be more than this, the different events, the knowledge, programs like this will just pop up one day and you will go in there and I'll say something that will be very relevant to you, that will be very instructive to you, it will help you, to propel you to go and research on something, it will propel you to go on Google and look for something. Maybe you hear me saying something, you go to my page, who is this guy? And then you see that, oh, I've spoken about this before. And then you listen to that and then something I'm saying there is just speaking to your situation. You see what's happening? From the moment your heart says, I am ready, God begins to bring the resources and the people, to help you achieve that goal. So that's self-acceptance, and you have to take responsibility for the next level of your life. Somebody says, I'm never ever going to love again. No, you will love. You will love, but take responsibility for your healing. Take responsibility for growing in knowledge. Take responsibility for putting an end to all the impact of that your past that has held you back. Take responsibility. Say no more. I'm going to drop all of these things behind me, and I'm going to summon strength from within. All right, and I'm going to move on. Don't forget what I told you. You have that very essence of God in you. And that's why scripture says that the strong spirit of a man sustains him in weakness, but a crushed spirit who can bear. You see, you can tell yourself, I'm waking up now, nothing ever is going to stop me. And trust me, the moment you take that decision, nothing will be able to stop you. Oh, yes. All right. So for some of you, you also need to forgive yourselves and then forgive the people who did those hurts to you. Yes, because that's one of the ways to let go of that past that you've been holding on to. You have to let them go. You have to let them go. You have to let them go. All right. When you don't forgive people, what's happening is that someone is in a prison. But the problem is, it's not that person that offended you that is in the prison. It's you. You're the one in prison. You're locking yourself. You're stopping yourself, from experiencing life because you're holding on to that hurt. And that person that you're still holding on to in your heart, you have given that person the driver's seat of your life. Don't forget I told you before that in this ship of your life, God put you as the captain and says, I'm entrusting this life to you. Go and make good with it. But what happens is that you're relegating that responsibility to somebody else to drive the course of your life. And unfortunately, because they're also driving their life, they are ignoring your life because they can only focus on one at a time. So you are just going to where you don't know because you're holding on so strongly to unforgiveness. And guess what? It's affecting your body. It's affecting your physical health. So you need to let go. All right. You need to let go. You need to let go. When you've done all of these things, you just discover that you're lighter. You just discover that there's a new zest of life. You just discover that now you are beginning to, you're able to make meaning of your strengths. Because guess what? No matter how battered you think you are or you have been, there are strengths. There are things that come to you naturally. There is no human in this world who was born without gifts. Inborn, that's what I'm saying. Not things you acquired. Inborn, it's there. There's no human who was born without those innate resources. Why? Because the seed of God is in you. It's there. It's there. But with clarity, you will now be able to focus on those strengths. You'll now be able to appropriate those passions. Listen to me. Some of the things that have happened in your life, that have caused you so much annoyance are just a pointer to areas where you would go back to and do something about and transform generations because of what you suffered. But if you don't heal, you'll be depriving those generations of the gift of you, of the blessing that God has enabled you with. There are certain things that somebody needs to go through to be able to communicate at the frequency where those who are going through those things will relate with it and it will take them out of that situation. But if you don't go through it, then you would lack the utterance, and the communication that they can relate with, okay, to bring them out of it. So what's happening is that the more you delay yourself from finding healing and finding strength and moving on, the more you delay, the more you should change all of those people that are tied to finding their freedom in your freedom. Are you with me now? So in essence, I'm closing now. It's already past my time. You are not all of those things in your past, your trauma, the dysfunction, all of those things you have defined yourself as. You are not them. And if you don't get past that and find wholeness, then you are not yet ready to share your life with somebody else. Because more often than not, you will be attracting someone who is just like you. It is when you're whole that you'll be able to recognize a fellow wholesome person. That's very important. I emphasize that. When you're whole, when you're healed, you'll be able to recognize someone who is equally whole. Because if you're not whole, you'll see that whole person, but you'll be interpreting them from the lenses of your dysfunction. And you would not be able to appreciate their wholeness. And that is why you see people who get married to someone who has been so traumatized and has not healed from it. And then this person that you say is an angel, the traumatized person will find faults and problems with everything this person does. For example, you hear people say things like, how can a man be too gentle and nice? He doesn't yell at me. He doesn't shout at me. He's not a real man. As a real man, once in a while, you should show your manliness by forcefully hitting your wife, shouting down at her, to show that you're a man. You see, that person is living in the realities of their trauma. They are not whole yet. So when they see what is good, they think it is bad. You see, Pastor Kingsley posted something one time on Twitter, and he said now he understands why women are comfortable in abusive relationships. He said because he had been in the States for a while with his family. He was driving around, and that night he was driving home, and everywhere was clear. Everyone's driving on their lane, no crazy driving, no police on the road harassing you and, doing all of those things they do in Nigeria, no craziness, and the guy was just like, chai. You see, for somebody who has been so used to the Nigeria situation, unfortunately, now seeing a place where everything is working, it can be doing you somehow. Oh, yes. So you see, some people who are still living in their dysfunction, when they see order, they can't relate with it. Don't forget what I told you before, that your brain will always gravitate you towards what you are familiar with. So they see order, they see peace, they see a loving and gentle person. They say, no, I've been used to chaos. I need chaos. So because their partner is not supplying the chaos, they will create it and create it enough to destroy that beautiful relationship that they had going. You see why you need to be whole? You see why you need to heal? All right. So let me leave it at that because I could take on this for a long time. But one final thing I would say is you need to learn to speak the word of God over your life. You need to learn to speak. That was how the world was created, by words. All right. So you need to speak, affirm, confess what the Bible says about you, what God says about you. You need to tell yourself that you are loved of the Lord. You need to tell yourself that you are special. You need to tell yourself that you are valuable. You need to tell yourself that you are the head and not the tail. You need to tell yourself that all things work together for your good. You need to tell yourself that. You need to tell yourself that you know whom you have believed in and you are persuaded that he is able to keep you committed to him against that day. You need to begin to find strength. You need to draw on your strength from within. Why? Because those are the things that will wash, as it were, your mindset of those disempowering thoughts, those disempowering beliefs, and begin to fill you with the right energy to transport you to the future that you desire. Okay? It is by words that the world was created. It is by words that you will create your world. Let me stop there for now. And I hope it's been a good use of your time. I hope to have a guest on the session with me next week. And it definitely will do you good. Okay? So be kind to yourself. Show yourself some love. Show yourself some acceptance. Pamper yourself. Give yourself a hug. Tell yourself you've been through a lot. But from now on, you're taking charge. All right. Those events are done and they're past and you're taking charge. And now you're going to experience all the goodness of life. You deserve it. You deserve it. That's why I say always that a blissful marriage is possible and you deserve it. You need to pamper yourself. You need to pat yourself in the back and say, you know what? I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to take full responsibility. All right. I'm going to forgive all those who didn't know what they were doing, was hurting me and was costing me all of this. All right. I'm going to let them go. They didn't know better, but now I know better. I'm going to take responsibility. Okay. I'm going to ensure that I am healthy. I'm going to ensure that I'm wholesome. I'm going to ensure that I gift this wholesomeness to another wholesome person. All right. You're going to take full responsibility for yourself. And you'll watch your life, just begin to take an entirely new trajectory. So that's all for Love Code with Mayzy today. That's all for the self-awareness and the flourishing relationships. All right. If in all I said, you still didn't see how it pertains to flourishing relationship, then you need to see me later for a closed door session that you will pay for. All right. Because at the end of the day, it is the quality of person you are that you will take into a relationship and marriage.